If you like true crime, dark history, the haunted and paranormal, then we think you'll like Ghost Town.
Ghost Town is hosted by me, Rebecca Lieb.
And me, Jason Horton.
We cover both notorious and obscure true crimes,
the haunted, paranormal, and unexplained,
and the dark history of everything from world events to pop culture.
There are new episodes of Ghost Town every Wednesday and Friday.
Find out for yourself what Vulture.com called essential listening and one listener called a total waste of time.
So pause the podcast you're listening to right now.
And go subscribe to Ghost Town for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And at ghosttownpod.com.
I got a clear EVP of a man's voice asking for prayer. And after this, I decided to ask, are you attached to one of these dolls? And got a clear response saying, oh yeah.
Most people go to a museum for history, but in North Carolina, some museums give visitors a little more than they bargained for. If you've seen Night at the Museum, the idea of exhibits coming to life after hours is fun on the big screen. But what if it's not just movie magic? What if in some museums, the past really does get up and walk around? As you are about to hear, the stories inside Wilmington's museums could rival any movie plot. The city and areas nearby may have been the backdrop for Scream, Halloween Kills, and The Conjuring. But what's lurking in these galleries is the kind of nightmare no special effects team can fake. Welcome to First in Fright, where we explore eerie legends, supernatural tales, and everything that goes bump in the North Carolina night. I'm your host, Cooper Thornton. This is episode 10, Nightmare at the Museum. First stop, the Wilmington Railroad Museum, located inside an 1883 freight house that once buzzed with cargo and boxcars. Today, it displays an old steam engine, a red caboose, and stories of Wilmington's railroad glory days. The trains may not move anymore, but the ghosts? Let's just say they've got places to be.
I'm Holly Saperstein. I am the executive director of the Wilmington Railroad Museum. It is located right along the riverfront of the Cape Fear River. I'm absolutely fascinated by history. Being a curator, being an educator, is a storyteller's job. Every artifact holds a story behind it, and some might say it holds a specific energy. And so to those who are interested in the paranormal, I think that there's probably a number of items in any historic museum that may have some kind of energetic impact. I'm here with my colleague, Kendall Cosgrove. I like to call her Kid. Kid has actually worked here in the Railroad Museum longer than I have.
I am Kendall, and I started here in, I believe, February 2019. And as soon as I got to my interview, I knew something was up with this place. And I knew that this was something that I wanted to be a part of. One of the first questions I asked Holly after we introduced ourselves, do you feel anything weird in this building? I'm not saying it's haunted, but I'm not saying it's not.
Boy, the amount of things that have happened here in the last 6 years is crazy. I think one of the very first things that I ever experienced was I used to come in about at least an hour early just to get started on my day before we opened up or any other staff was here. And the first thing I would do is go ahead and walk through the museum, turn on all the lights, turn on the equipment, the televisions, etc. I walked to the very back, and all of a sudden I heard old-timey singing, like an old work song. And I am trying to find if there is a radio on. I am trying to determine where this music is coming from. I open up a back door. I open up the side door. There is no one outside singing. I come back in. It has stopped. I start to walk forward to the front. I hear that singing again. And then I hear footsteps behind me. I just about took off in a sprint towards the front. I stopped lighting lights. I did not turn on equipment. I stopped and went to my office until somebody else was here. I have heard that music, either a work song or an old-timey song, I cannot tell you how many times over the last 6 years. What about you, Kendall? Have you heard it?
I have heard it. To me, when I hear it, it sounds like very old jazz, like something that you'd hear in the 20s. Honestly, it sounds like it's coming out of a tin can, and it is never where you are. As soon as one of us would go towards the sound, it either goes away completely or it's behind us.
And I have heard that music, it seems like only when we're closed. Kendall, do you think it's associated with something?
Well, the corner of the museum that I always hear it coming from first is where our office setup is. I mean, it's original pieces of Atlantic Coastline office.
All of the stuff in that office was pulled out of the old freight office, which is the 3-story building we used to be in. And there was a famous artist named Claude Howe, who is very well known in North Carolina art, who actually worked in that freight office for many years. And he said that they would sing or type in rhythm to the radio. So we know that the radio was played in that section. In fact, one of the pictures in that Office Depot shows Claude Howe. I don't know if it's Claude. I'd love it if it was Claude.
I was sitting at the front desk, just on my guest services shift, and I hear footsteps. I don't think anyone was here at this point. And I saw a man walk past the alcove, the little archway that I'm looking directly at from my desk. And he just walks by very casually. I'm like, oh, okay, so someone is here. That's cool. And I get up because I don't remember checking this person in. I just want to make sure. And make sure that I give them the rundown of the museum. And no one's here. Nobody was there. It was a man in overalls, in denim overalls. That was the clearest apparition I had ever seen. I went back to sit at my desk, and I'm kind of glancing at this archway thinking, oh gosh, is he gonna walk back or am I crazy? And then I see a hand pop up over in an area that's sort of adjacent, and I hear a shift. We keep a lot of our artifacts in these archival boxes, and we had several that were just holding old files there. I heard it shift. I'm thinking like a mouse, and I hear it again, and I look back, nobody's there. And I sit back down and I look up, and it's a leather glove, like a dirty work glove, just waving over one of the bookcases. A sort of half a second sort of thing, almost like a bird flying by, like that quickly. And I'm like, hello? Is anyone there? Can you come out from there? Nobody came out from there. But I did hear that box. It shifted again, as if someone was moving through that area.
Our men's bathroom, of all places, seems to be a hotbed of activity. We have a wonderful colleague. She's incredible, but she is pretty cynical about paranormal activity. Well, one day she went to go and check the bathroom, but is part of closing. Went to push the bathroom door open, and it was pushed back in her face. Bam! Slammed closed. She stepped away thinking, oh my goodness, somebody is in that bathroom. Then she knocks on the door and says, hello, hello. She doesn't hear anything. So she once again opens the door, pushing a little harder this time, and it freely opens, almost to the point of her just tripping into the bathroom. She said that there was this heaviness in the bathroom when she went in. We've heard whispers. We've had the stall door pushed towards us. We've had water turned on. That bathroom is crazy. There was one paranormal team that came in. They were the kind of paranormal group that likes to dispel activity. They had this instrument, picks up like a stick figure of where there might be an anomaly or an apparition. And they picked up this stick figure coming out of the stall towards the camera operator and acting like it wanted to fist fight the camera operator. And the guy who's over here with the equipment said, "Something's there, act like you want to fight it." So the guy starts to push his hand like he wants to fight it, and the thing comes back at him. There was a murder here in the 1890s. There was a British ship that came into port here to offload cargo, so they gave the people who worked on the ship leave. There were a couple of guys, locals, who were getting drunk at a bar down on Nut Street when there were a bunch of bars down here, and were 86th from a bar for getting in a fight. Walked down Nut Street and encountered this British mariner who was coming off the ship, headed probably to go get a drink at said bars. They accosted him, took his wallet, and stabbed him. And he died right here in front of this freight house. They were tried. Their story changed from one of drunken disorder to self-defense, and they were released. They did not serve any time for this British mariner who is actually buried in Bellevue Cemetery here. So that is a tragic story of somebody who was stabbed to death. And we get this stabby energy from this character in the bathroom. You got to wonder, did the guy who did this stabbing, who got off scot-free, when you think about it, for killing a guy, could he have been just locked into his place right here?
Right. Like
of all things, stuck in a bathroom. One of our employees, she worked with us a few years ago. She is a mother of 5 children. She asked if she could come after they were off school to show them the museum. I said, absolutely. So she and her children enjoyed the museum, and then they left. There's an old boardwalk that runs in front of the museum all the way down to where you can go towards the riverfront. They were going to walk down and just check out the river. So as they're walking down the boardwalk, they hear something behind them. We do have out in front of the museum a 110-year-old steam locomotive, and her 5 children, as well as she, turn around and look back, and they see an apparition that they could see through of what looks like a conductor stepping up onto the locomotive. He just goes right up the steps and into the locomotive, and she and all of her children witnessed it. We know of one conductor who operated that train for almost 40 years. I think it's that conductor. I've met their grandchild, and how much they loved that 250. That's the number on the engine.
If you could see my face, it's quite shocked. That is the first that I'm hearing of this, and I'm not surprised by it at all, but there's just so much activity that happens here that I feel like we almost have to have like a monthly meeting to go over it all.
There was an accident that happened along the Atlantic coastline, just north of here. There were a number of fatalities on that. The conductor and the engineer did their very best to try to do what they could to stop the train, to the point that the conductor basically rode that train to his death. His family was given his personal effects when they went to identify his body and prepare for his burial. And one thing that conductors were required to carry was what we call a wallet. Inside would have been all of their credentials, their time card, things like pictures of their wife and their children. His wallet that he had on his person when he passed was given to the museum as an artifact. It had been in the archives for a long time, and we started building a safety case and decided to have a portion talk about this incident, showing the wallet and the picture of the conductor. And when we did that, things started happening to the point that we started wondering if we really wanted to have that on display, because the front of that case had been opened or moved open multiple times after that wallet was put into place after hours. That is the place where we hear whispers. And we have actually had a couple of people who've been touched on the back when they've been standing at that case. I don't know what it is about Railroad that seems to really attract a spiritual energy. And there is so much folklore around ghost stories with the railroad. There is something about the fact that energy was harnessed for the first time, really, that moved people and possessions. It changed the way people could travel and go see things. And I do believe that that magic of the rails feeds the energy that spirits need to make themselves known.
Fun fact, Holly's not just the museum director, she's also a horror actress and starred in Halloween Kills. Turns out she handles creepy encounters both on set and off. Speaking of creepy, if you think haunted trains are unsettling, just wait. Our next stop is the Museum of the Bizarre, which is full of objects that should have been sent packing on a one-way train out of Wilmington permanently.
My name is Sean Austin. I am a demonologist, paranormal researcher, medium, and author. I've been investigating the paranormal for 15 years. I've actually lived here in Wilmington, North Carolina for a little over a year. There's a lot of historical places around here, and a lot of the people are open to the paranormal, which I really like, and that make me feel really welcome. Once I moved to Wilmington, North Carolina, of course, I immediately started doing research on local places that had unexplained paranormal phenomenon allegedly going on, and the Museum of the Bizarre definitely stood out. I befriended a paranormal group, Carolina's Unknown, who had actually spoken to Eric, the curator there, and set up an investigation. So we actually all went. When I first walked in, I immediately felt like an electric charge emanating from the floor, and that's typically my sign of some sort of paranormal energy going on in the space. As you walk in, there's like a little ramp that goes down into the middle, and you start to see all the different unique items and the stories behind them. I mean, anything from the macabre to serial killers to creepy dolls. Eric, the curator, had a lot of interesting stories of paranormal experiences. He has seen people that he thought were still in the museum when he was closing up and saying we're closed and no one was there. Next door to the museum, there was a place called the Serpentarium. The owner, Dean, was responsible for handling snakes. They had alligators. He'd actually been bit by venomous snakes many times. Tragically, one day, his wife, Gina, murdered him by gunshot. I believe they had the 911 calls, and they could not revive him.
I need an ambulance. A man's been shot at the Cape Fear Serpentarium.
Eric has witnessed a gentleman in the back corner of the museum, used to be the auxiliary area of the Serpentarium, and believes the man is Dean, and he's going into the bathroom to get water for the snakes. Maybe he's trying to tend to this place that he loves so much. It could be him. Walking into the middle of the museum, you cannot miss the Annabelle doll. Now, it's not the real doll. It was used on the set of the original Conjuring film.
You picking up anything in here, hon?
Something awful happened here, Ed.
What is it?
Annabelle is one of the most infamous said-to-be haunted dolls in the world. The Conjuring begins with a scene involving the doll. The story goes with the real doll. Now, it was a Raggedy Ann doll. It's not the doll that you see in the movies, which looks like a creepy girl. It is said that a mother provided this Raggedy Ann doll from a flea market to a daughter living with roommates. Now, the doll started to appear in different rooms and started to move on its own. So they started to leave traps around the house to see if someone was trying to play a prank on them to frighten them. And they realized there was nobody playing a prank. So they had a psychic that came in and gave them information about a little girl, Annabelle, that had allegedly drowned nearby. Now, this is when things started to turn even worse. They started to bring the doll to the table and have dinner with them. Biscuits, tea, acknowledging it like it's a real human being. And that's when the boyfriend was attacked. He felt like he was being choked. Saw the doll crawling up on him and woke up with claw marks, bleeding. So that's when they reached out to Ed and Lorraine Warren. They are pioneers in the paranormal field. And they came to the house and they determined that it was not a little girl named Annabelle, but it was an inhuman demonic force, and it was disguising itself. That is what you see that inspired all these different appearances and movies involving Annabelle. The original Conjuring film was filmed at a farmhouse right outside Wilmington.
This thing has latched itself to your family.
There are stories that are reported of strange, unexplained activity that took place on set during filming of that movie. Vera Farmiga, when she was doing research on Lorraine Warren, she opened up her laptop one morning and saw 3 claw marks on her laptop. Now, when she came home after filming, she saw 3 claw marks that appeared on her thigh. Other production people involved in the set were having recurring nightmares of sleep paralysis, seeing shadow figures. They had some sort of huge breeze and wind that came on set and knocked everything over. They had birds hitting the house on the set just like it was in the movie. I was lucky enough to actually go to the farmhouse where the film was shot in person and do an investigation on the property. Now, this farmhouse was used also for the movie I Know What You Did Last Summer. The curator actually reported to me there is paranormal activity going on inside. He has heard footsteps and seen shadow figures. I was using a voice recorder, EVPs, which stands for Electronic Voice Phenomenon. And what that is typically spirits talk on a frequency that we can't hear. So investigators will use a recorder because they can actually listen to these frequencies and record them. That's why we have to listen back to see if there's some sort of disembodied voice responding to us intelligently. There was just a constant barrage of voices referencing Lorraine Warren or Vera Farmiga and telling me about some sort of demonic spirit that was there around the set. I have those recordings and would love for you to hear it and have your own opinion on what you think you hear.
Can you say the first name of the couple that the movie was about here? Either their names, the husband or wife? Ed.
So the Annabelle prop doll looks like a creepy girl meets a clown with like a grin on its face. It's something that you'd expect to see in a really creepy horror film. There have been people that have claimed to see the head of the doll move on its own or smile at them. And Eric said that Lorraine Warren was once inside the museum and saw the movie prop doll and said that something attached itself to the doll around the filming of the movie. Because of the media reporting on Lorraine Warren's visit, people from everywhere started sending them dolls that are allegedly haunted. So they started collecting them, and they're all hanging from the ceiling by some sort of string in the back left corner of the museum. And it's pretty creepy. There are many different types of dolls, just typical baby-dressed, diapers, to dresses, to creepy, weird faces. Some of them were damaged. I mean, whatever you could think of when it comes to thinking about creepy dolls. I asked if one of the dolls could move. This doll in the red dress started to swing. Now there's no vents back there. There's nothing that could have moved it. Out of all the dolls, for this one doll to be moving, and there's rows of dolls behind it, why is this one doll in the front seeming to move and nothing around it, behind it, to the left or right? And we didn't see any moving at the time until the question was asked. So I thought the timing was really unique. I got a clear EVP of a man's voice asking for prayer. And after this, I decided to ask, are you attached to one of these dolls? And got a clear response saying, oh yeah.
Are you associated with one of these dolls back here?
I wondered if this was the spirit that was the shadow figure that Eric witnessed. I just talked to Eric about doing another investigation because that night when we were there, we were only there for about an hour and a half, and look how much evidence I got. So I'd like to do a little bit more of an extensive investigation. I bet there'd be more to come.
And there was more to come. Just 2 days after we recorded with Sean, news broke that paranormal investigator and Annabelle doll handler Dan Rivera was found dead in his hotel room while touring with the doll he devoted so much of his life to.
Annabelle's next stop, guys. Augusta, Maine.
Though rumors spread online blaming Annabelle, Dan died of natural causes. Before his passing, Sean shared this memory of Dan.
I was live streaming in front of the Annabelle doll. Now, interesting enough, Dan, Rivera were both looking in front of the case of the Annabelle. We're standing in front of it, and it seems that the latch to the door of the Annabelle doll had come loose. And we're looking at each other, kind of a little bit of disbelief and laughing. Are you serious? Is this too good to be true? Like something weird like this happening right now? So he had discussed this with the other team members and kind of brushed it off. That same exact night, when they brought back the Annabelle doll to the Warren Museum in Connecticut, the St. Michael metal latch that was on the doll and the door flew across the museum.
Got a creepy doll staring at you from a shelf at home? You know where to send it. There's plenty of company waiting. But for now, it's time to leave the dolls behind, lock the museum doors, and put the past back on its pedestal. Next time, we're trading the quiet halls of museums for the bustling streets of Raleigh, where ghosts stroll the sidewalks like everyone else.
A few minutes passed, and I opened my eyes, and there was a woman standing in the doorway. And the figure was translucent, and it was bluish in color, and it glowed a little. And I took a breath, and it's that thing like, oh my God, I'm actually seeing a ghost.
To learn more about the paranormal places and scary stories of North Carolina, visit ncfirstinfright.com. Discover trails and destinations that will haunt you in the best way, and share your own NC scare by tagging hashtag #NCFirstInFright. First in Fright is a production of Visit North Carolina, Luke Wire, and AYR Media. Hosted by me, Cooper Thornton. Executive producers Katie Bailey and Dana Grimstead for Visit North Carolina. Executive producers Nancy Landisberg, Michael Ashley, and Ryan Coleman for Luke Wire. Executive producer Eliza Rosen for AYR Media. Produced and written by Sarah Auspitz. Edited and mixed by Cameron Taggy. Casting producer Danielle Hillenbrand. AYR Media Coordinator Andy Levine. Studio engineer Mac Geary.